All right, let's take a second to think about the intuition that's happening here. All right, so take a look at this first plot. I've made us a horizontal line for the mean of x and the mean of y. That's what all of these dashed lines are here. These dashed lines are our mean of y and the mean of x, right? You now have quadrants on your graph, right? We have this upper left quadrant up here. We've got this upper right and the lower left quadrant. And that's where most of our points are for this positively correlated graph, right? So when x and y are both greater than their means, right? So like this point here, the x value is greater than the mean and the y value is greater than the mean, right? The z-score for that is going to, for each of those, right? The x z-score and the y z-score are both going to be positive values. So for most of these points up here, the z-score times the z-score, which is the quantity we're interested in here, are both going to be positive values, and the result is going to be positive. For down here, the z-score is going to be negative for both x and y, right? Because both x and y are less than the mean of x and y, right? So the z-score for x is going to be negative, and the z-score for y is going to be negative. And when we multiply those together, the result is going to be positive. That's what's happening down here. So when we add all of these z-score times z-scores together, they're mostly positive with this exception, and they're all going to get added together, which is going to give us a relatively large positive number, right? Here, we've got some negatives times positives, right? This is greater than the y mean, but it's less than the x mean. So the z-score for the x is going to be negative, and the z-score for the y is going to be positive. So these are going to cancel each other out, or not cancel each other out, but when you multiply them together, they're going to be a negative value. But that negative value is going to essentially cancel out this positive value, right? So here we have equal representation in each of these quadrants, and that ends up offsetting, and your correlation coefficient will be close to 0. So over here, you see there's a slightly less strong correlation here. There's a slightly less strong relationship. The correlation value is minus 0.86 compared to positive 9.4. But we've got a couple little offset that are going to be negative values, but they're going to be positive values. But for the majority of these are going to be negative, right? This one is negative, this one is positive. They're going to multiply together, and you're going to get a negative z-score for these. So anything that's in this upper left quadrant and this lower right quadrant are going to have a negative z-score product. Those are all going to get added up together to a relatively large negative number, right? So that's a little bit of the intuition that's happening here. This is only looking at linear relationships, so there is that, but you can kind of see these quadrants are something that become useful when we look at the z-scores of these values, and we combine all of those together to get our correlations.